Gifted Students Assignment, Juan Valladolid, Education 458. Social emotional needs of gifted and high performing students. These are some of the characteristics they have. They learn material faster and at an earlier age. They only need to hear the information once or twice, so there's no necessity of reviewing multiple times. If this happens, or if there's too much time spent on that, this can lead to outside behavior if not kept busy or interested. They can keep information and they can retain this information for a long time. They may not be passionate of all topics across the board. They might be interested in a certain topic, for example, math, or just some sort of sport or art. Teachers need to be able to identify that, and they could turn that passionate that the student has and implement that in the curriculum some way. For example, modifying their lesson plan to implement this type of sport, and maybe they can write about it if they're doing a writing assignment. Maybe they can write about how this maybe the writing topic can be on tennis or soccer if this student likes it, and design and the lesson still runs accordingly. Sometimes these students, obviously most of the time, these students don't need to be watched. They can multitask. It may seem like they're not paying attention, but they are. They're doing other things, but at the same time, they're keeping at task. Um, understanding what goes inside of these students. The self-esteem and self-image, they're constantly analyzing who they are compared to their peers. They know and they have this sense of a higher sense of a higher like educational rate. Maybe they don't get along with their peers. The teachers have to build that bridge and make sure they're connecting some way, somehow, on a certain level with the rest of the students. There's many mixed messages about them. For example, that they're physically weak, they're social inadequate, they're out of touch, unattractive. So that's what some of the other students perceive them as. They're confused where they will fall. No one wants to be. This can make their gift um, be viewed in a negative way. Their gift may be a target. So it's always good for the teacher to develop lessons targeting these gifts and implementing it to the rest of the students. We need to teach them how to manage their gift. Gifted students are children. They're students. They're children at the end of the day, despite their challenges or strengths. They may um, educationally be viewed as adults, but at the end of the day, they're children. It's um, relating to other students. They may have a problem with that. Teacher again needs to act like a bridge. Parents also need to act as safeguards. There's also the stigma of being a nerd. Nobody wants to be a nerd or categorized as a nerd. Um, these students have a macro perspective. They think outside the box. They pay attention to detail, critical thinking. They view patterns. They analyze. They have high standards. But at the end of the day, we need to remember that they are still children and they're still growing. Out there, it's an uneven, level playing field. They're good at something. They lack something else. They need support, guidance, and in other areas. Synchronous development of gifted and high performing students. Asynchronous development is composed of development and multi-levelness. Development it's has to do with in terms of how they were born and how they were cultivated in the years before school, their educational background of their parents, where were they raised. A lot of factors, even economical, cultural factors, blend into this. Multi-levelness is the tension between what is experienced as higher versus lower in oneself. This is having adult ideas, but also being a child. There's a tension between both views. The social setting, child development, child likeness. Perfect example may be a single child that has no brothers or sisters, but is constantly having interactions with adults, and these adults have gone to college and have an education. This student is basically pretty much going to pick up that vocabulary or that interaction versus someone versus another child that spent their childhood versus with a lot of children watching maybe cartoons, maybe not having a lot of interaction with adults. So at this rate, it's the mind versus the body. The development rates, they're two different rates. The mind maybe has developed a lot faster rather than the body. The child is still trying to navigate. There's the gift versus the emotional aspect. At the end of the day, we have to remember that these children, no matter how gifted they are, they're still a child at the end of the day. These children, their attention to detail is incredible. They're able to critical think. They see patterns. They view. They perceive subjects in a different manner, and definition of a synchronous development is the advanced cognitive ability and high intensity combined to create experiences and awareness that are qualitative different from the norm. Along with that, there's twice exceptional students. These are students that have an area of giftedness and also an area of disability. It has not received a lot of attention. Usually the gift goes undiagnosed. The disability is diagnosed, the gifted, and the gift is usually left in the shadow. Option of giftedness goes overlooked. Some of these students are in RSP, special ed programs. They might be very strong in one area, for example, they're great at math or art or technology. They have the capacity to be gifted in one area and maybe not in the others. We as teachers have to be able to recognize this and adjust our lesson plans or modify, have certain adaptations for these students. We want them to thrive. We want them to receive the services for their disability, but also keep the doors open for them to thrive because I personally know many students that fall into this category and have graduated from colleges, currently work with a female individual who has been diagnosed with dyslexia, and she has her master's in counseling psychology, and imagine someone like that was not served adequately. Maybe who knows how far they would have gone in the educational system. And the summary. Social emotional needs of gifted and high performing students need to be recognized at an early age and served adequately. They need to be challenged constantly and kept busy and interested in the curriculum. A synchronous development of gifted and high performing student focuses on the development of what's going on inside of them versus their physical and emotional development. And we have to remember at the end of the day, they are still a child. And twice exceptional students are those students that carry on a disability with their gift. The disability overlooks the gift, and we have to be able to identify both of them and work with these students. This module was very, very helpful.